Okay, this is 4:02. I suppose it is the time to start. I see that the attendees are starting to join. So welcome everyone to the 4IP Council's webinar, The Rise of Cryptoassets and NFTs and its implications for copyright law. My name is Axel Frazzini. I'm the Managing Director of 4IP Council and I will be your host today. As you may know, 4IP Council is a not-for-profit organization and we are a research organization. So we are focused on the link between IP and innovation to identify the most relevant topics and produce empirical research. We work closely with a wide variety of academics, experts, IP organizations, and stakeholders. On our website, you can find a wide range of free materials like studies, guidelines, summaries of relevant papers, and recordings of all of our webinars like this one. Moreover, we produce easy to digest content, especially tailored for non-IP experts, SMEs, and startups. This is free of charge as well. Some examples are interactive graphics and interviews to inspire innovators. With this, we aim to assist innovative startups and SMEs to learn how to use IP to grow their businesses. As you know, and more things are increasingly connected thanks to the Internet of Things. To achieve this, standardized technologies are needed, often protected by patents. This is why we have created a case law area with summaries of court cases regarding standardized social patents. This section is now also available in Chinese and in Japanese. A dedicated section in Chinese of the website has also been created. Now, without further delay, it is my pleasure to have Professor Dinusha Mendes as our speaker today. Dinusha Mendes is Professor of Intellectual Property and Innovation Law and Director of the Center for Intellectual Property, Policy and Management at the Bournemouth University in the UK. She was Deputy Dean, Research in the Faculty of Media and Communication from March 2020 until March 2022. She is the author of the first NFT zine, I suppose we say, exploring the intellectual property implications on NFTs. It is entitled Demystifying NFTs from Technology to Intellectual Property and has been tokenized as an NFT and is also available in print. Dinusha has also written a paper, forthcoming, titled When Different Worlds and Laws Collide, The Rise of Cryptoassets and NFTs and Its Implications for Intellectual Property Law. This paper is due for publication in early 2023. We are also glad to welcome Andres Cartula, who will participate in the Q&A. Andres is a legal trainee at Vidal Quadras and Raymond, a law firm specializing in intellectual property and competition law, as well as a former intern at 4IP Council. We are very proud of the work that Andres has delivered, as he wrote a paper called Metaverse and NFTs, Business Opportunities and IP Challenges. This paper is available free of charge on the 4IP Council website. I invite you to stay until the end of this webinar for a simple reason. There will be a surprise at the end, at the very end. So stay tuned. And a final remark for the audience, please do not hesitate to use the Q&A tool to submit your live questions during the webinar. You can find it in the lower part of the screen. You can raise your questions at any time, and we will start taking them in about 30 minutes. As just a warning, some people have already sent their questions in advance. So now, that's a serious time. Dinusha, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Axel, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I'm really delighted to give this talk at the 4IP Council, and as Axel said, please do put your questions in the Q&A, and as I speak on this topic of the rise of crypto assets and NFTs, implications for copyright law. So in today's talk, what I'm going to do is, this is my outline. I will do a very brief introduction to crypto assets and NFTs. I think by now everybody knows what it is, but I'll just do a very brief introduction. And then I'm going to really quickly jump into the IP implications. So looking at things like ownership of NFTs, the right of distribution, the liability of marketplaces, what it means for creators and artists, the artist resale right, and then finally some data implications in the context of blockchain. Finally, I will conclude my talk by considering what lessons we can learn from the past, if there are any at all. So moving to my next slide, very briefly. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, so non-fungible, it is basically carries a unique token ID. And this is, I would say, is probably the most kind of the unique feature of these NFTs. It's kind of one of a kind or one of a collection. And whilst, for example, there's also, what fungible is like money. So like our €5 or £5, which can be broken down into other parts, whereas an NFT is something that is very unique. You can't exchange it for another. There's only one of that and only one of a kind or one of a collection. So NFTs, actually the word NFTs comes under the umbrella term of what I have also said in my title, crypto assets. They're also known as cryptocurrency or sometimes crypto tokens. And in fact, it's not on my slide, but also known as exchange tokens as well. So I should say that crypto asset, however, is used much more widely than cryptocurrency. And the reason being that, for example, at least here in the UK, the Bank of England does not, and of course, the rest of the world as well, does not recognize crypto as a form of currency. So we can't call it cryptocurrency, but of course it is referred to as crypto asset. So you might have heard of the word cryptocurrency, but I would say the correct terminology would be something like to call it a cryptocurrency or crypto token. And of course, the most important other point is that these crypto assets and NFTs are unregulated. And we'll come to that. And that's one of the reasons why we want to understand the law and then consider, how the law can address this new technology. And also these, whatever you buy using crypto assets, crypto tokens, they are recorded on the blockchain. So maybe you have seen the blockchain, maybe you have not, but if you haven't, then this is what the blockchain look like. It looks like. So you have the transaction numbers, you have like when the, so at the moment, the screenshot I have, it shows it's pending. That means it's being authorized, the timestamp from who it is to whom it is, and the value and so on. So what you have is it's a database, it's divided into blocks. There's a timestamp and it's validated by nodes on the network. So that means all those pendings will then turn to validated. And then finally, it's a permanent record. It cannot be deleted. And I think that is one of the great aspects of the blockchain, but also what does it mean for data if it cannot be deleted and it's a permanent record? So that's the question I'll ask towards the end of this presentation. So with NFTs, and moving on to the main kind of topic, to in fact create an NFT, it is really important to have a creative work or a product. So many industries and many kind of businesses have got into this. So we have like a music industry, we've got the fashion, we have, for example, Nike here, and even others like, so for example, now you can even sell NFTs on Instagram. So there's many ways in which NFTs have actually kind of got into our retail sector. The most important thing is that there has to be a work or there has to be a product before it can be tokenized. And so this is something that Axel mentioned. So this is what I've created called Demystifying NFTs from Technology to IP. It's a zine or zine. And it's, so yeah, actually, if I show it here, maybe you can even see it now. I'm just holding it up. And to create that, I need a crypto wallet. And thereafter, what I did was I had to go to a platform like OpenSea, which I did. And then here you have it. It's like I then went to this page which says to create new item. Now to create that item, I need to have something. It's normally a creative work or it could be a product. So I did that. And then I went to the my next step. And this is where, for example, it's taken a little bit of time to load, I think. I hope you can see it. And so this is where I have now tokenized my print version, or it was in fact the electronic version, into an NFT token. Of course, I'm not here to make money. This is more for a research purpose. So I have priced it as an experiment for 0.001 ETH. ETH is the currency. So that's like, it says $1.63, which is not much, but anyway, that's just a thing. And then thereafter, you can see here like my description, and then also all the details, and that's something too. So you can see the contract address, the token ID, the token standard, the creator fee. At the moment, so it says it's a 0%, but you can see exactly all those things that is associated with this particular work. So what I want to really highlight before I move on to IP is that to in fact even consider IP and to consider NFTs, there has to be a creative work, there has to be a product. So from that, I move on to my first question of asking about the ownership of NFTs. So when you buy an NFT, what is it that you have access to? So you have access through a URL to this virtual asset. And in this sense, you have ownership of the asset. So in terms of property law, you do have, it is your property. You bought it. You can do what you like with it in the sense that, once you buy it, in fact, you can sell it on. It is your property. Okay, that's okay. And in fact, a number of cases since 2019 in England and Wales have recognized cryptoassets as a type, and in fact, NFTs as a type of property. And not just the courts of England and Wales, but also, in fact, the Law Commission of England and Wales published a consultation in July 2020. And in this consultation, the Law Commission called for a third type of personal property for recognizing crypto assets. So in effect, you can see there's a great push towards identifying and recognizing crypto assets as a type of property, and in fact, as a type of personal property. At this moment in time, we have two types of personal property, but in UK, we are calling for a third type just for crypto assets. But from an IP perspective or from a copyright perspective, things are slightly different, because buying an NFT does not mean that you can acquire the copyright in the work. In fact, as many have mistakenly thought, it's not possible. Unless the copyright is specifically assigned to the buyer of the NFT, the copyright will remain with the copyright owner. So unless the copyright is given away, the copyright will remain with the creator of the work. So in my case, even if I was to sell this as a token, the copyright is still mine because I'm not assigning the copyright to anybody else. So what you have is a certificate of ownership. And of course, for example, you can see in my slide here, I put a picture of some people who spent $2.66 million buying this book, and they mistakenly thought that they can do whatever they like with that book. That is not the case. So you have the property, you can sell it on, but what you can do with the actual property in terms of, can you reproduce it? Can you adapt it? All those are actually allowed under IP, and those you cannot do unless it's in fact given over to you. And there are many cases in this arena actually, and I'm just putting up a few here. And of course, the Bored Apes Yacht Clubs. There's a lot of cases here whereby I should say they're also all in the US as well. But really it comes down to poorly drafted contracts or maybe a lack of understanding of NFTs and IP. And in this case, when I read through the contract of BAYC, they are very poorly drafted. They are quite loose, and so therefore, it's not really unexpected that there would be so many cases coming out of this particular asset. But sometimes actually contracts are well drafted, And in fact, these contracts go back well in time. And even so, there have been cases. And one such is the case relating to Tarantino. Now, this goes back to a contract in 1993. And when the Pulp Fiction film was produced. And at that time, Tarantino did, in fact, sign a contract with these film producers. And but then he launched an NFT collection, which consisted of some images and also the screenplay of the Pulp Fiction film. He was sued for copyright infringement and also trademark infringement and also breach of contract and many other things as well. He did sell one for 1.1 million. And then after that, he kind of pulled them away. And then so the case was dropped. But it will be interesting, you know, in the case, even where there are older contracts in place, like in this one, of course, those, you know, people might still go on to tokenize. And in that case, you know, then it does come to those questions of contracts once again. So maybe those kind of maybe film producers like Walt Disney and so on may want to review their contracts, and others may want to review their contracts in view of this new technology. Another point I want to touch upon is this point of exhaustion. And so, of course, once the copyright owner places a work in the market, that work is exhausted. And we think of places like eBay, and basically, you know, there's a great secondhand market. Like if I buy a pair of shoes, I can sell that shoe on, it's not a problem, it's a secondhand pair, and that's because in fact, the right has been exhausted. Now, I said before that NFTs have a token ID. This makes it slightly different because the token ID is very unique to that particular product. You know, it's very different to like MP3 files. And in the sense that if I have an MP3 file on my computer, and then I was to infringe on copyright, maybe share it with other people, which I don't do, but let's say I did that, it does not mean that I lose the copy to the MP3 file myself and the value has gone down. I still have it. I've just made copies of it. But my copy is still the same. But because NFTs have their own token ID, if that NFT is sold on, and then the token ID goes with that, then you might have a copy of your NFT on your computer, but there's no value in that. It's a bit like I spoke about the shoe. It's kind of like to say, I have this great rare pair of shoes, and then I sell it. I make a lot of money from that. But then before I sell it, I kind of take a photograph of it. I then frame it. But I don't have any value in that anymore because I've given the real thing away. I've sold it. I made my money from it. So it is different to MP3 files, it's different to films and so on, which makes me wonder whether NFTs are in fact more akin to like physical goods. You know, are they? I mean, it's a question I'm asking. And of course, you know, these are questions we are all asking. It's a very new area. So, you know, it made me think about like, you know, can it be something like more like physical goods? And, you know, we then look at the case law we have in front of us and consider what are the cases saying? And there's a case from 2012, which of course established this particular case here on my slide. It established that a copy of a computer program will exhaust the distribution right. So we now know that the computer program in that kind of situation, okay, that's exhausted. But what about other things like ebooks and other virtual assets? You know, what happens to all of them? And we've been waiting for a long time. And in 2019, we had another case, which is the Tom Cabinet Internet case. Now, in that case, whilst it was eagerly anticipated, the court, however, went down a different route and didn't go down the exhaustion route, but instead went down the communication with the public right. So basically said that actually it falls in things like ebooks. If you are going to sell the ebook without the copyright owner's consent, well, then that is an infringement of copyright. So that didn't really answer the question. I didn't really go on the exhaustion doctrine. So, you know, can we apply that to the NFTs at this moment in time? I don't think we can, because like I explained, NFTs have their own unique token ID. If you sell it on, it's gone. There's no point, even if you kept a copy of it, it has no value whatsoever. So it is a gap in the law. I think it's something that that in fact needs addressing and needs clarity. So I think that's something, as we go forward, we hope that we will get that type of clarity in the future. Moving on to marketplaces, and looking at the liability of those marketplaces. These are, like I mentioned, OpenSea, that's where my zine is at the moment. That's where I've like tokenized it. There are others like Rarible and NFT Trader, so on. And these are there for the buying and selling of NFTs. And, there's many NFTs there. Some are great, some are awful. Some have, there's a great variety of NFTs on those platforms. And of course, these are all US platforms, so they are bound by US Copyright Act. And of course, which means they are bound to take note of the notice and take down. And whilst a big platform, like a larger platform like OpenSea might be abiding by that, there are many, many other platforms who are, of course, not so vigilant. And even OpenSea, even though they do profess to take down material and abide by the law, it was quite surprising that earlier this year they admitted that at least 80% of the NFTs on their platform are plagiarized or knockoffs. That's really bad, and that's not great at all for IP and for creators. So that's a problem. And in fact, a number of artists got together and fought back as well, because they found the NFT problem is just getting worse. And there are others, for example, who have put out tweets saying their work is constantly being copied, and it's, of course, again, not a good thing. And we don't want a situation where we don't want, the whole point of NFTs and the whole point of the blockchain is that it's authentic. It kind of records your transaction. It's meant to be transparent. It's meant to show exactly what was bought and sold. And we don't really want a situation where the blockchain is full of like pirated and counterfeited transactions. No, we want us, the whole idea was that, it can really, I think when the blockchain was like first unveiled, or when we came to our knowledge, really, we thought, oh, it could be like a registry, and it can really identify, and can be like a good system to find authentic works. But really, it seems to be going the other way now. So, it is important that these marketplaces do take note of their terms of use. That's a really important thing. And also, unfortunately, there are smaller platforms that are not caught under Article 17 of the DSM directive because they are excluded as marketplaces. And again, that is something that we will have to address as these platforms continue to grow, and as there are more and more platforms that come up in this area. The final point in relation to this is that NFTs and crypto assets and the whole ecosystem here is meant to be one of decentralization. So, which means, people and everyone who kind of work towards this aim feel that we are regulated far too much by companies like, like the big companies like Google or Facebook and so on. So, or Amazon, etc. The idea was, let's not have one person regulating us. Let's be the regulators ourselves. So let's be decentralized. But then the thing is that when things do go wrong on these platforms, actually, at one time, there was someone, like many times, of course, the people's, their money is stolen from their crypto wallet, and then, or someone's got scammed or something's happened. At that point, they want the platforms to act. And I remember very well earlier this year, a platform acted quite swiftly, not just one, in fact, 3 of them acted to try and help this particular person. And everyone was upset because they felt that, why are platforms getting involved? Why are you getting involved? This should be something between the person who got scammed and the scammer. Let them solve it, because this is meant to be very open, and there's no need for one person to come and regulate everybody else. But can we really live in a world like that? That's it's a question, again, I guess, we can think about and ponder, but that's the tension that currently exists. One further point in terms of IP and copyright I want to touch on is this resale right, or the artist, or ARR, which was introduced into UK law in 2006. It was transposed in one of our directives from the EU. And at the time it was introduced, it was seen to be outdated, it was seen to be inefficient and expensive, because the whole idea of this particular piece of law is because it grants artists and there is the right to receive a fee on the resale of their artwork. And it's based on sliding scale sale price and for determining the royalties. So, you have to have it's quite administratively heavy, and everyone's got to be part of a collecting society, and it's got to be mandated by a collecting society for it to happen. And so at the time, it just was like, not many people, and there are a lot of articles written, at least in the UK, and I know also in the EU as well, where it was just seen as cumbersome, too much of admin. But it makes me wonder, now we have the blockchain, is the blockchain the answer? And in asking this question, I was really struck by this report. And this is a great report. If you would like to go and read it, it's by these authors here, McDonald Corth, Ledon Berta, and Mayer. And they are from Oxford and the Alan Turing Institute. And they, in fact, examine this particular question, whether there can be an art market 2.0 and in using the blockchain. And they answer that in the affirmative. And they say, yeah, it can be, a great way of going about things. They do, of course, raise some concerns and they talk about challenges, but overall, there are many opportunities to be gained by that. And also, in the UK at this moment in time, the collective management organizations that we have, like DCMS, which is the Design and Copyright the Collective Management Society, it has expressed their kind of interest in embracing the blockchain, but really hasn't gone forward as yet. But it's really interesting that in America, they have already, one of the CMOs have already embraced the blockchain, and they've already created and in fact unveiled a blockchain NFT platform. So, there's some things that we can learn, I guess, and, there's some things that we can really take note of here. And I think there's a great opportunity, whilst we have challenges to address, but there are also opportunities we can embrace as well. One last point I want to make is in relation to the blockchain. And like I said, it's immutable and it's permanent, and it's a permanent record. Whilst it's a permanent record, it doesn't, however, mean that the blockchain can know whether work is truly authentic. That's not possible, because all you have here is a string of numbers and, a timestamp, and that it's been verified, but no one can tell whether what's there is original or not. So which means that somebody else can take the someone else's work and tokenize it as an NFT, and therefore infringe the IP. And like I said before, we don't want a blockchain whereby it's full of counterfeit or pirated material. Which then leads to the question of, like, if you do find your brand is on this as a transaction, and you want to destroy that, can you do that? Well, it's not possible. And in this case, you can see that Nike wants to destroy unauthorized NFTs, but how will that work? They can't actually do that. I mean, you might be able to do that with a platform like Pirate Bay, like notice and takedown, injunction, stop it from, block, like a blocking injunction, stop people from going there. But can you really, you can't really delete things from the blockchain. It's permanent. And even if you were to do that, it's almost impossible. I suppose you can do it if it's absolutely, maybe there's a way, but I mean, generally that would just take too much computing power, and it's almost impossible to, in fact, even to try that. So that's a problem there. And also, and here's another really great example of someone, this is a guy called Terence Eden. He actually did this more as an experiment, but he bought a portrait of Mona Lisa. He went to this auction house and he sold it, and he got a certificate of authenticity. And he says, I don't understand the blockchain hype. A startup has certified my artwork and placed their verification on the Bitcoin blockchain. Now art dealers and auctioneers can feel secure that I'm the original artist. One small problem, I am not Da Vinci. You can see that, this is like, and the worst part is that you can't really, you can't actually delete it, or you can't take it down, or you can't have a blocking injunction or anything like that. So that does really create a problem. And, how do we address that? I mean, there are cases that talk about unlinking. Maybe that's kind of a way to go about it. But, this is something that even the Law Commission of England and Wales, in their consultation paper as well, they do talk about this particular aspect of this issue of the blockchain. On the one hand, it's a benefit, it's great, it's transparent, it's permanent, everyone can see it. On the other hand, it also does raise certain issues as well. And this is another example. I am conscious of the time, so I will skip from this slide and go to one of my final slides and ask the question, is it a boom or a bane? And, in some ways, I hear a lot of people, and people ask me too, do you think NFT is just a passing fad? And, is it something that at some point, we might maybe it won't even be in our minds anymore. And in fact, there's something called the hype cycle for emerging technology. And right now, NFTs have gone through the inflated expectation. It's kind of falling into the trough of that, they're like where the expectations are falling. But of course, there's a place called plateau of productivity. And if it reaches there, then of course they will go forward. And of course, whilst we started with the hype last year with the Beeple artwork and all of that, we've had a market crash this year. So there are things which, have been hyped up, and then also there's been crashes as well. But what do we say from the legal perspective, and what do policymakers make of it? So there are EU IPO guidelines right now in relation to trademarks in terms of tokenizing an NFT. So, they have taken some note in relation to that. As I said, there's a consultation from the Law Commission of England and Wales, which was published in July 2022, this year, which closed last Friday, which I responded to. So they took it very seriously. They had questions about property law, but also they had very specific questions about NFTs and IP. So that's something that's really, encouraging there as well. Of course, the UK Treasury Committee, they have had many consultations, but that is more on the financial side of things. But then finally, the UK DCMS inquiry, which only launched a few days ago, will now have this inquiry into NFTs. So which means policymakers are taking note. Maybe it is something that it might be seen as a hype, it might be hysteria, it might be a passing fad. But what we can see is that there are a number of IP, copyright, in fact, and data issues as well. And there are other issues too. Of course, there are things that I'm not addressing in this particular talk, but there are many other issues too that are of concern. And we haven't really talked about the metaverse, and NFT is one aspect of that. And of course, the metaverse throws up a whole set of new questions as well. So it's quite right that policymakers take note of this technology, and not just policymakers in the UK, but EU and internationally as well. And I've given you some of those examples. So what can we learn from the past is basically that we have seen many technologies emerging, over the years. And if we can learn anything from the last 20 years is that, if you look at the music industry or the film industry, etc., do we wait and wait and wait until things get really out of hand, as we saw in some of those industries, and then it takes something like iTunes or Spotify or something like that to have that symbiotic relationship, and then work with the law? Or can we kind of almost be a bit proactive and take some steps and address this new technology, so that we can protect those who are investing, but those who are creating, and then also make a space for those who are interested in tokenizing. So thank you very much. I'm now happy to, I think Axel will take questions, and just want to say that, this is based on my zine, but also on an article I've written previously, an article that's coming. The second link, demystifying NFTs from technology to intellectual property. So that's the link, which is my NFT, which is on OpenSea. Like I said, I'm not really looking to, if you have a crypto wallet, I can just transfer it to you. I'm not really looking to sell it as such. But one other thing I want to say is that for the surprise that Axel mentioned, so if you can please still stay till the end, and then there'll be a survey. The first 10 people to answer this survey. And when you do answer the survey, there's a box to include your email. If you would like a free copy of this first zine, which looks at NFTs, IP, and technology, or in fact, you can have a token NFT. If you have a crypto wallet, I'll transfer it to you. You can be one of the first to get that. Then please, please do complete the survey, put your email, and you can be a winner of one of these zines. So thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Axel.
Thank you so much, Dinusha. I have to say that I learned a lot. So we have received many questions, and we will start right away to make sure that we will have enough time. First is, I believe, the simplest. What is it that you actually own when you buy an NFT?
Yeah, thank you, Axel. So like I said in my presentation, what you own, I mean, you actually get access to the NFT through a URL. And so you will own that digital file. All right. So if you then want to, so you have the property. So the property in that, you will own it. So if you then want to sell it on, you can do that. But maybe what I should also say is that what you don't own is you don't own the copyright or the intellectual property rights in it. So it's a bit like buying a pair of shoes. I own it, but I can't start to produce another pair of Nike shoes, take it to a cobbler or something like that, and say, can you just replicate that same thing for me? No, so you can't do that. So what you own is a digital asset, which you can sell on, but you can't start adapting it, reproducing it, and do other things with that.
Okay. And there is Roberto in the Q&A who used the following explanation. He said that just like when you buy a copy of a book, you own that copy, but the copyright still remains to the creator.
Exactly.
That's correct. Okay, very good. Second one would be, you showed us the NFT you created. How easy is it to create an NFT, and why would someone want to create an NFT anyway?
Yeah, great question. So how easy was it to create an NFT? Yeah, I mean, it was a very interesting experiment and a really interesting journey I went through. It wasn't too hard. I mean, having said that, there's a lot of talk on, I guess, in the news about NFTs. It's not like, I would say it's not like buying chocolate or something like that. It's a bit more, there are many steps to it than just thinking, oh, just uploading my e-version of my zine onto the internet. It's not like that. There are a few steps. I mean, you had to join a exchange. So that's something like Coinbase. Because what you have to then do, which is a little bit uncomfortable maybe for someone who's cautious like me, because I'm a cautious person, is then you have to put money, your real money, from your real bank, into a digital wallet or into an exchange like Coinbase, and then turn it into cryptocurrency. So you must have an exchange, then you must have a digital wallet, then you must have the platform, like open up an account with like OpenSea, and then you're ready after that to, in fact, create your token. So it wasn't too hard, but it has a number of steps. Why would someone want to create an NFT in the first place? Yeah, great question again. I think I didn't, because of time constraints, I couldn't really talk a lot about like the historical and how this came about. But I think there's a human desire sometimes to be part of like a collection, and it really depends on what you have like a passion in. And sometimes there are rare items. It's not for everything, but if it's like a rare item or a collectible, then I think NFT is a good way of like owning something. And there are some things that we have that were not possible for tokenizing or to be made digital, which you can do now. NFT allows that to happen. So that's one of the reasons. But I also think also of like, I come from the academic field, and, I did my own research. I did that book, and then I then tokenized it. And I just wonder whether there are ways of distribution, even for publishers and so on. So there are maybe different reasons why people might want to tokenize.
Okay, thank you. Maybe now a question more for Andres. Are copyright license agreements needed when selling, buying NFTs? And if so, are traditional copyright license agreements suitable for NFTs?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank for IP Council for having me here as collaborator in this session. and also to Dinusha for her very enlightening presentation. And answering the question, I would say that it is not that they are strictly needed, because as Dinusha mentioned, there are some projects in which the contract is poorly drafted, or there is no really copyright expertise in these contracts. There is no, and even in some cases, there's no mention to copyright. But it is true that as NFT projects get more structured, we are seeing the market provide specific licenses in which it is said that the copyright remains with the copyright owner, or maybe to the contrary, it is specifically said that the NFTs are public domain and there is no copyright involved. I would say that even if they are not strictly needed, they are of course advisable. The best practice would be to protect the copyright, and also for the sake of clarity, to let the buyers know what they are actually buying. And in terms of clarity and really knowing what is being transaction, it is interesting, the question about traditional copyright licensing agreements. I think Dinusha explained it very well, the Tarantino case. This is a paradigmatic case in which a Web2 license copyright agreement was to be applied to a Web3 environment. And this brought, of course, many complexity. And no one really knew if what Tarantino did was included or not. There were also copyright and trademarks at the same time implications. So I would say that the best practice is to take copyright into consideration and applying maybe old tools to new contractual agreements, or even revising contract agreement or copyright licensing agreements that were reached years ago. I'm sorry, Axel, I think we cannot hear you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we just received a comment, and maybe Dinusha, you might be able to clarify this. So Richard is saying he understands that you can burn an NFT, which would mean that you can, so somebody is providing their address, their digital wallet, and when you type to send a copy of your zine, okay, you will type it wrong. So your tokenized version of the zine will be lost. And is that, how can you retrieve it, or that's totally burned and that's lost?
Yeah, so I think the question is why are NFTs burned? Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is a good, and you know, we see, I think recently there were all these like some celebrities burning NFTs as well. So this makes it even more of a rarity then, right? So the few people who then have it, the value goes up even more. So this is like almost like a market. I'm not really in favor of this, to be honest. I mean, I've seen people burning paintings, burning lots of other things, you know, like you create it, you tokenize, and then you burn it. And of course, you know, this is why I think also the market crashed as well. At some point, it was so hyped and all this was happening and the market was going, you know, it was completely off the charts. I would say there's more like a gimmick thing with the market and the investments and, you know, try to almost increase the value more than it should. That's, I think from a financial perspective, maybe, you know, maybe there's some sense in that, but I don't really see the value in it, to be honest.
Okay. Maybe another question for Andres. You know, most of the time when you talk about NFTs, the metaverse almost always comes up. And but the question is, which are the IP implications of using NFTs in the metaverse, not only as regards copyright, but also in relation to other IPRs?
Well, that's quite a broad question. But I would say that mainly we're talking about the metaverse. The intellectual property rights that come to mind are trademarks in this sense. Because I mean, if we understand the metaverse as a virtual 3D world in which you can, as user, you can interact and socialize, work, play, etc. The idea is for it to be a personal experience, and in that personalizing of your experience comes the customization of the avatars, and this is done through NFTs many times. NFTs that represent virtual items that you can wear, or your avatar in this case can wear in the metaverse. So the problem comes, or the trademark implications come with the fact that these NFTs could be tokenizing assets protected by trademarks. It is fairly interesting in this sense, the Meta Birkin case. In this case, Hermes sued an NFT artist called Jon Rothschild that launched a series of NFTs of the Birkin bag called Meta Birkins. And well, there are many implications to it, but one detail that I think is relevant to the question is that the court drew it's not that it drew the line, but to understand the difference between NFTs that could infringe trademarks and those that cannot. What the court said was, well, the key concept here is whether these NFTs are wearable in the metaverse. So if taking the example of the Birkin bag, if I can buy the NFT and put it to my avatar, then this NFT will be liable of trademark infringement, according to this court. However, if not, it will be an artistic work. So this is one of the many implications that could arise from using NFTs in the metaverse. And of course, there are many more to come, and it's a very open subject. So we will see how courts keep producing case law on this matter and how things evolve.
Yeah, so a follow-up question, maybe for Dinusha. I'm trying to combine two questions. So NFT is an aspect of a host of technologies emerging at the moment. Of course, the metaverse throws up a number of issues. What work is being done in the EU, in the UK, or internationally to address these issues? That's the first part of the question. And second part will be, so I understand I can do NFT transactions across the web, and that will be done actually across multiple jurisdictions. So what laws will actually govern the NFT transaction in this scenario?
Okay, two really great questions, big questions as well. So the first one, what work is being done in the UK, EU, internationally in relation to this metaverse and NFTs? Yeah, I mean, there is a bit of work going on. So at the EU level, I would say even international, is the World Economic Forum. You know, they have done quite a bit of work actually in this area. So, I mean, if anyone is interested, you can go there. You can see some of the reports they have published. These are very focused on the metaverse. They have a metaverse value group, a metaverse creation group, and a metaverse governance group as well. I'm part of the governance group. They have stakeholders from various different industries, also academics, practitioners. So a great group of people, and their remit is really digging deep into the issues of the metaverse and trying to unravel some of those key issues, and also then publishing papers on a regular basis. So there's some of the work that's been done there. And, you know, as I say, very big companies are part of that group. So, you know, it's a good place to go to look at those kind of reports. At the UK level, there's, of course, the UK Intellectual Property Office. They are also involved in this work. And there was recently, as part of their futures program, they were unveiling a program of work which looks at metaverse. And so that work I know is currently going on within the IPO. So again, I think we can hope to see some work coming out of the IPO in relation to this at a UK level, probably in the new year, so maybe early 23. And then, of course, internationally, of course, we are here when we talk of the metaverse, and I think this is nicely links to Axel's second question, the question that Axel just gave, the second part of it. When we talk of the metaverse, the thing with the metaverse, and as Andres said as well, a broad question, because the metaverse is really our lives, just in a different verse, in a different universe. So when we think of our lives on this, our lives on this planet, we are, so many different laws govern us. One is IP, of course, one is contract, one is criminal, one is like data protection. We can go through the whole host, human rights, all those different laws. So, of course, there's work going on at an international level from the financial sector. So the USA is very far in this context. They really have had many consultations, lots of work looking at different crypto assets, currencies. Also the UK, other countries, I know in Europe as well, and elsewhere, Singapore, Israel, Japan, a lot of work going on there. But what laws govern across the jurisdictions? I mean, there will be many laws. Of course, private international law will come into play. But if you think of the metaverse as another parallel universe that we're going to live in, where we're going to interact, then IP will be one of those laws that will, of course, that we will take note of, as it's something that interests us. But along with that, we have to think also of privacy rights, security rights, data protection rights. So, all those things. And I mean, it will be an interesting time for lawmakers and policymakers as they begin to address, whether these laws, and I think we are just only at the tip of it, whether the laws we currently have are in fact suitable for the metaverse, or are they something that needs rethinking, or reassessing, or whether they can just be translated. And of course, we see in some cases, Andres mentioned the Hermes like the Meta Birkin case, that's a really interesting one. There's the Nike StockX case as well. So, these are cases that are currently ongoing. Some have settled out of court, like Tarantino. Others are going ahead. So these will hopefully give us some guidance, at least from the context of where we are speaking about today.
Yeah, a lot to expect. There's a question that is linked to the metaverse. So, are you aware of economically viable solutions which allow buyers of crypto assets to verify their provenance? And the scenario is, for example, I wish to buy a luxury brand digital wearable for use in a metaverse. How can I be sure I'm buying a genuine wearable sold by the luxury brand rather than a counterfeit one, especially given there are numerous NFT sales platforms based on many separate blockchains?
Okay, really nice question. Great question. Thank you. So how can you be sure? Yeah, I mean, actually, like I said, and I gave examples too. So there are a lot of counterfeits and pirated products. There is a way. I'm not going to say it's straightforward. Okay, it can be done. You can check whether what you're buying is the most authentic version or not. The starting point is the smart contract address. So on my slides, I did show like in one of the slides I showed, it shows the details. I said there's a token ID number, there's the smart contract number. So you can click on the smart contract, which then will open up this page called the Etherscan. And from that, it's quite a technical process. So, you have to have someone technical by you with some technical knowledge, but you can compare that address against the digital wallet of the seller. And if these match, it means, and you can get to the history of it as well, because the smart contract really gives, the smart contract, if you really look into it, it's a lot of information there. So there is a way to match it. And that's the only way that you can check whether what you are buying is the real authentic version, because through that, you can get to see the digital wallet of the seller and who they are, and that can be traced back. So it is possible, okay? It's not the easiest thing. That's the only way, at least to my knowledge, that that you can do that. But it is not the most straightforward thing at the moment. It's not like, I suppose, like, maybe the other way to do it is that you go to the official website, like Nike or somewhere like that, and see whether, you can, of course, get it from there, the NFT token. But if not, if it's through like a platform, then the smart contract is a good starting point to the Etherscan website 2, checking the wallet address of that, and then the who's selling it, and then of the NFT that you want to buy, and then the seller, and then checking that it's the same, it kind of matches. And then you'll know whether it's the actual person trying to sell it or someone who's counterfeiting it and scamming you and then trying to sell you a counterfeit product. And if these two don't match, then yeah, obviously don't touch it.
So it seems far from being easy. There is a suggestion in the Q&A, a suggestion posted that says A16Z have provided contracts for use with digital assets that is available on GitHub. So at least there is a template of contract to use. That's something that people might be interested in to explore. Moving in the list of questions, we still have a few minutes. Hold on. In relation to marketplaces, it seems there are a lot of pirated material, as you showed in the slides. So are there any other steps or actions which marketplaces can take over and above reviewing their terms of use?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Really great question. Something that I've been thinking about as well. You know, what I mean, of course, because I spent some time looking at terms of use, and I was wondering, is this the one way to go about it? Are there other ways that we can go about it? And I was responding to one, like I mentioned, the Treasury Committee of the UK. They were doing a consultation, which I responded to. And in fact, I was thinking at the time, and I was writing my response. One way is, you know, I showed you how I created my NFT. So I showed, for example, there's a point called create an item, and you go through the different steps. And I wondered, you know, can't we have a box that, because it's like a page at that point, and you're like, you know, putting information, ticking boxes, doing stuff like that. Can we not have a box like we see in the bank, for example, when we're about to send money to somebody, you know, we have to take a box saying, I understand that this is a genuine transaction or something along those lines. Okay, I take responsibility. I know that I understand that, I know that I'm not being scammed or something, and then you tick the box. And, you know, could we have like even a thing whereby when someone is creating an item, you know, should marketplaces take more responsibility for having like even a thing where at the time of making an NFT available or at the time of buying, you at least take the responsibility, or you have sort of a, like what banks are doing to protect their customers, do something, marketplaces do something to protect their customers, both the buyers and the sellers. And I think this could be something that, you know, they could do, and without too much hassle as well. So maybe this is one thing apart from terms of use that maybe we can adopt.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that will be the last question we are going to take. Marta, thank you for sharing the last slide. I would like to point out that later today you will receive an email inviting you to complete a 1-minute survey. And this is where you will have the possibility to add your email address after receiving the survey. You know, there will be a box, and Dinusha will kindly give away 3 copies of the zine to the first 10 attendees who complete the survey. So give it a try. Okay, that would be a good opportunity to create your wallet, or at least to experience the NFTs. And you have also the possibility to receive a printed copy if you prefer to have something more material. Just put all the information and you will get contacted through your email address. I have the feeling really that we would have been able to continue longer, but we have to end. Just before closing, I would like to highlight the fact that next week, 4IP is organizing a webinar with LESI, and that will be about green tech helping net zero emissions by 2050. We have great participants joining from diverse industries, so that's a great opportunity to learn more about this topic. And final word will be to thank you very much, Dinusha, for sharing your knowledge. I have to say, if I had a professor like you, I think I would have spent more time. And Andres, I would like to also thank you for joining us today, for all the great work that you have done when you were an intern in 4IP, and all the interest you have also shared today with us. So thank you very much to the attendees as well. And I wish you all end of a great day. Bye.
Thank you.